Hi y'all, this is Mrs. D, and today we're going to be going over adding and subtracting integers. So let's go ahead and get started. When we're adding and subtracting integers, there's a few steps that we need to follow. The first step is we want to check our signs. We want to ask ourselves, do the numbers in my problem have the same sign? They're both positive or they're both negative? Or do they have different signs where one is positive and one is negative? So here's a couple of examples. If they're both positive, it's going to be like this one, 4 plus 5. If they're both negative, we're going to have a negative 4 plus a negative 5. And then if they're different signs, one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. So my two examples here are negative 4 plus 5 and 4 plus a negative 5. So let's go on to the next step to see how to solve this. So for step 2, if they have the same sign, we're going to add the numbers and keep our sign. So let's look at two examples here. We have the same problems that we had in the first step for our examples, 4 plus 5. So these are both positive. I'm going to use tiles to represent these two numbers. So I'm going to have 4 positive tiles, which are yellow, and 5 positive tiles, which are also yellow. Well, because they're all the same color, none of them are going to cancel each other out. So I'm going to end up with a positive answer of 9 because there are 9 total tiles over here that are positive. Now the next step, or the next problem, has a negative 4, which is red tiles, and a negative 5, which are also red tiles, and I'm adding all of those together. So when I add a negative 4 and a negative 5, I have a total of negative 9 tiles. So you see, if I'm adding positives, I'm still going to add my numbers just like I always have, and I'm going to keep my sign. So 2 positives make a positive. 2 negatives, however, I'm still going to add them all together because they're negatives. It's kind of like if you owe people money. So if I owed Grandma $4 and I owed my mom $5, I would owe a total amount of $9. So all of that is negative because it's all money that I owe to other people. Now let's look at the next step if we have different signs. So if I have different signs, I'm going to find the difference, which means I'm going to subtract my numbers, and then I'm going to keep the sign of the greater number. So let's look at a couple of examples for this one. These are the same examples that I had in the first step. I have a negative 4 plus 5. So let's go back and use the tiles again to represent this. So I have 4 red tiles for negative 4, and 5 yellow tiles for positive 5. Well, if you know about negatives and positives, we know that negative 1 and positive 1 are opposites, which means they cancel out to 0. So if I have 4 red tiles and 4 yellow tiles, those are going to cancel out to make 0. And then my remaining tile is my answer, which is a positive 1 because it's a yellow tile. Now the next one, I have positive 4 plus a negative 5. So that means I'm going to have 4 yellow tiles and 5 red tiles. Well, just like in the one before, my yellow tiles, I have 4 yellow tiles and 4 red tiles are going to cancel out to make 0. And then what I'm left with is 1 negative tile. So this is going to be a negative 1. Now, if we go back to our sign rule up here, different signs, find the difference, which means I'm going to subtract the numbers. So here in the first one, I had negative 4 plus 5. They have different signs, so I subtract. Well, 5 minus 4 is 1. The greater number here is 5, and it's a positive, so my answer is going to stay positive. Down here in the second one, I have a positive 4 plus a negative 5. I still have different signs. I'm still going to subtract. So 5 minus 4 is 1, but this time my negative 5, my 5 is still the bigger number, but it's negative. So my answer is going to be a negative 1. So in this case, I actually, if I think about money, if I have $4 in my wallet and I owe somebody $5, I have to pay them that $5, but I don't have enough money. So I'm still going to owe them $1 when I'm finished. I have to pay more than I have, therefore I'm going to end up in the negatives. So for our fourth step, we're going to look at a special situation where we might be subtracting a negative. In this case, we want to add the opposite. So let me show you what I mean. I have two examples here, and if you notice, instead of 4 minus 5 or 4 plus a negative 5, I actually have 4 minus a negative 5. So I'm subtracting a negative. Well, when that happens, we're going to end up adding the opposite. So instead I have 4 plus a positive 5, and then I can solve that. So let's use our tiles. I have 4 positive tiles and 5 positive tiles, and so together those are going to make a total of 9 positive tiles. Nothing cancels out, so they all fit together. Now let's go to the second one here, and I still have minus a negative. So I'm still going to add the opposite, but in this case my first number stays the same. So this will stay a negative 4, and then I'm going to add the opposite, which is plus a positive, and now I can solve this one. So let's go ahead and use our tiles again. Now I have 4 negatives and 5 positives. So these 4 positive and 4 negative are going to cancel to make 0, and I'm left with a positive 1. Now if we go by our sign rules to solve both of these, after I add the opposite, I now have 4 plus 5, which are the same sign, so I add and keep the sign. In this situation, after I add the opposite, I now have a negative 4 plus 5, which are different signs. So I'm going to subtract, which is 1, and keep the sign of the higher number, which in this case is a positive 5. So that would be a positive 1. So really, it's very simple. All you have to do is think about your sign rules, or if you need to, you can use a visual, such as these tiles. So let's go ahead and recap the steps to adding and subtracting integers. So first we want to check our signs and ask if they're the same sign or different signs. If they're the same sign, we're going to add the numbers and keep the sign. If they're different signs, we're going to subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the greater number. And last, if we're subtracting a negative, we have to add the opposite before we can use our sign rules to solve. So on the fourth step, once you change to adding the opposite, you're going to go back up to the first step and then ask yourself if they have the same sign or different signs to solve. I hope this video was helpful. If you need to watch it a couple more times, that's fine. You can try some of the practice problems on your own. And if you still need help, be ready to ask a specific question. All right, this is Mrs. D signing off. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.